Hey chat. Yesterday, we took a look at a Xanderhal clip and responded to his take on that. That was about bottom surgery and like whether or not people should have access to it based on having dysphoria or not. There's been some more discourse, so we're just going to take a little overview of the situation, just do a little vibe check. All right, so we took a look. Zan quote tweeted Naomi Chance, and we can take a look at the original tweet, even though we saw it yesterday, because it's so short, just so we know the context. So let's do that.
This. The real issue I take with Keffals and what she said here, her actual misstep here, is throwing in, like, equating trans and transitioning in a certain way. Tons of people who are trans don't go for irreversible surgeries. That is why people say you don't need dysphoria to be trans. However, the people disagreeing with her that you shouldn't need proven dysphoria to get bottom surgery are fucking insane. You are begging for a fucking torrent of detransitioners, okay?
Okay, so the argument here is that people who don't have dysphoria shouldn't be getting bottom surgery, or we shouldn't allow that to happen. That's a society in which we have that is a bad society, is what I'm reading from that. Naomi Chance took issue with that, and then Zan quote tweeted her and said, "Realizing fast, a ton of you either don't know or don't care that dysphoria can and has existed for some people who regretfully ended up getting bottom surgery when it was unneeded. The guidelines are not too strict. Access to trans-affirming care is too sparse. All the rats come out of the woodwork every time they think the landscape is antagonistic enough around me to start rumors that they think will go unchecked." First of all, before I continue, that's a poor choice in wording right there. I don't think that's like a sign of like some hidden bigotry or like a mask off moment. I think Zan's just really careless about his words. I'm trying to be charitable. She also cuts me off right as I start talking about how there isn't enough access to trans care facilities in the US, and some states have none. What a piece of shit, Lamau. Okay, well, I don't want to be a piece of shit, so we can take a look at like a little bit more of the video. So let's do that.
No, I'm not arguing against dysphoria. Keffals replies, "No, you can't actually. No doctor who is credentialed will operate on you without several letters confirming gender dysphoria." And then Keffals replies to, "It shouldn't have to be that way, but it is how it is in our society. I think it should. I think without medical justification for a surgery as intense and irreversible as sexual reassignment surgery, there needs to be medical justification backed by studies and decades of medical literature. If you take dysphoria away as the precursor, conservatives will immediately argue it's just body modification and at best remove any and all coverage and at worst ban it." Tons of people got mad about this. I imagine some of you in chat are mad about this. The real issue I take with Keffals and what she said here, her actual misstep here, is throwing in, like, equating trans and transitioning in a certain way. Tons of people who are trans don't go for irreversible surgeries. That is why people say you don't need dysphoria to be trans. However, the people disagreeing with her that you shouldn't need proven dysphoria to get bottom surgery are fucking insane. You are begging for a fucking torrent of detransitioners, okay? What she said here is not wrong. It's just a little out of touch and disconnected with current times. The reality of it is, I think Keffals words it better than I really can, because there is a really significant generational disconnect between young and older trans people. We had this whole conversation years ago with ContraPoints getting canceled every time she dared to make a video. So I think it's time that we go through all of it all the fuck over again with a whole new batch of Zoomer lefties that don't know that there's a pretty substantial generational gap in this space. Out of touch, no shit. I'll seriously stay silent. I'll just stop making remarks. Stay silent and just let's hear out what Keffals has to say about it.
Calling this a slur is incredibly over.
Oh, wait, this is the wrong thing. Oh yeah, by the way, that is literally part of the drama.
Okay, so the problem here is that he says she cuts him off right as he starts talking about how there isn't enough access to trans care facilities. Maybe that happens a bit later. I wouldn't call that cutting off, though. Like, can check again. Maybe I missed it.
I'm not arguing against dysphoria. Keffals replies to, it shouldn't have to be. If you take dysphoria away as the precursor, conservatives will immediately argue it's just body modification and at best remove any and all coverage and at worst ban it. Tons of people got mad about this. I imagine some of you in chat. I take with Keffals and what she said here, her actual misstep and transitioning in a certain way. Tons of people who are trans don't go for irreversible trans. However, the people disagreeing with her that you shouldn't need proven dysphoria to get bottom surgery are fucking insane. You are begging for a fucking torrent of detransitioners, okay? What she said here is not wrong. It's just a little out of touch and disconnected with current times. The reality of it is, I think Keffals words it better than I really can, because there is a really significant generational disconnect between young and older trans people.
Okay, no, he just goes right to the Keffals video. So yeah, he doesn't talk about that. For Naomi to not have quote-unquote cut him off here, she would have had to take two different parts of the video and edit them together, which I'm pretty sure would have, like editing a clip like that you're using critically usually gets called clip chimping. So I think Naomi might have been accused of being bad faith in either case here. I don't think that's very fair to say she cut him off. Maybe he does say that somewhere else in the stream, but I think the take that he gave stands on its own, especially since he's not backing down from it. Let's just see what like other people have said in response, because we just want to get like a little vibe check here. I'm just really confused on what someone with no dysphoria trying to get bottom surgery even looks like. This kid was how we know pretty much 100% no dysphoria is real, valid, and anyone can get it in the right circumstances. Thankfully, our current medical guidelines are pretty good. I don't think genuine detransitioners are bad people we should disregard. Well, I agree with that. That on its own is fine. Yeah, this is that person who got bottom surgery or had like corrective surgery when they were born, and it caused them lifelong depression, resulting in their suicide. Yeah, I don't think that's... I'm pretty sure Ellen here was asking, like, who is going out there without dysphoria seeking bottom surgery? So that doesn't really apply to that question, but it's not wrong. Oh yeah, I've heard about this. My question was about whether there's a bunch of non-dysphoric people trying to get bottom surgery, and if so, why? Same reasons as prior to modern medical advances in the field. Lack of access to the right resources. A lot of actual non-dysphoric detransitioners are old as fuck because they grew up in a time where being gay, trans, bi was a no tutorial process. Most detransitioners that are young are still trans, but don't have the money, support, or access to move forward. Older detransitioners that detransitioned like 30 years ago, I think, are genuine because they weren't evaluated by our modern medical standards initially. Okay, so I think what Zen is arguing here is that if we didn't have any kind of screening process, then we would go back to having genuine detransitioners, people who get surgery and don't want it. and they say they need to look more into it. So we could keep going, but I think we got like the gist of it here. My main question is, if Zan thinks like the current way that it's done, the guidelines are fine, and that the problem is just lack of access, then the question becomes, does this apply to cis people getting like plastic surgery or something? Because we can look at like regret rates for other things like breast reduction, or no, breast implants we wanted to look for. So 27% experienced mild regret, 19.5% moderate to strong regret. That's pretty high. We could look at like regret rate, penis enlargement. Is that a thing? Between 90 and 95. It's a much more positive result. What about knee replacement? Dissatisfactory rate of 6 to 30%. Okay. Okay, how about bottom surgery? That's 1%. Well, let's take a look at that. What time period is that taking from? Because Zan's saying that it used to be different. Where's the link? How old is this data, I wonder? Well, we're going back to the 90s. Okay, so at least the 90s. No, we got 80s here. Prevalence of regret rate is 1%. Yeah, less than 1%. Well, it doesn't seem like there's a huge torrent of detransitioners. Oh, Karasu says, but he also had it as a child against their own will, no? He had the case of a butchered operation. I feel like there is a conflicting problem here about societal and medical transitioning. And yes, plastic surgeries often have higher regret rates. Yeah. Yeah, they seem to have way higher regret rates, like immensely. And that's going all the way back to the 80s at least, in terms of comparing to trans surgeries. So the claim that because the medical standards were worse then, we had far more genuine detransitioners seems to just rely on intuition on Xanderhal's part. I don't know if he has some data to back up that claim, or if he's just kind of, you know, shooting from the hip. So that kind of seems like that's what he's doing there. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's got like some crazy sources in his pocket. I guess we'll see. So which is it then? Should dysphoria be a crucial requirement for bottom surgery, or did cis people who had dysphoria ended up receiving unneeded bottom surgery? The cis people had dysphoria after receiving bottom surgery, not before. Our guidelines for evaluating dysphoria prior to the 90s wasn't as great as today. That's probably true, but we don't have any, or at least I haven't seen any data that suggests that it's like a huge problem in terms of detransitioners. Who are those cis people you're talking about? Probably the cis people who regretted getting bottom surgery or detransitioned, which is an even rarer group than the trans people. And even then, it depends on the reason for regret. Yeah, that's true. Genuine question, do you believe there should be more gatekeeping for cis people seeking surgeries? It's a weird double standard that cis people can get, say, a breast augmentation without any mental health screening, while trans people need 2+ distinct psychiatric letters. Well, another thing about breast implants we can look at is not just regret, but breast implant suicide rate. And that produces a 2 to 3 times increased suicide risk among women that undergo cosmetic breast augmentation, according to the National Library of Medicine. So if we were to say that Zan is making a good take here, we could extend his logic to cis people and say that we should be restricting access to surgery for everyone broadly to the extent that we do for trans people. Because if he doesn't believe that, then he's holding a double standard, as Naomi mentions. Different Naomi, no relation. Yeah. And that's about it. Now, Zan talks about another thing in this video that I wanted to look at. And it's something we covered a few streams ago. So let's do that. We had
this whole conversation years ago with ContraPoints getting canceled every time she dared to make a video. So I think it's time that we go through all of it all the fuck over again with a whole new batch of Zoomer lefties that don't know that there's a pretty substantial generational gap in this space. Out of touch, no shit. I'll seriously stay silent. I'll just stop making remarks. Stay silent and just let's hear out what Keffals has to say about it.
Calling this a slur is incredibly over.
Oh, wait, this is the wrong thing. Oh yeah, by the way, that is literally part of the drama. Now we're talking about another thing, the Theyfab discourse. I have blocked and unfollowed numerous people on Twitter for going after Keffals for this, because if you're mad at her for this, then you're just gonna...
Why?
...to jump down anyone's throat for anything. Theyfab and Theymab are words that refer to trans non-binary people who were like, if you're Theyfab, you're trans non-binary, and you were
okay, wait, we're getting a definition. Let's Google it. We did this already on another stream, but just for the sake of being thorough. Etymology: blend of they plus afab assigned female at birth. LGBT slang: derogatory, a non-binary person who is assigned female at birth, often one that does not change their physical appearance. Coordinate term: Theymab. Slang: derogatory, a non-binary person who is assigned male at birth, often one that does not change their physical appearance. Okay, so those are both terms that exist. Let's check out... We got Urban Dictionary here, and we can look at this in a second, but let's just continue with what Zan was saying the definition was. Let's test them against each other.
Like, if you're Theyfab, you're trans non-binary, and you were assigned female at birth. And if you're Theymab, you're trans non-binary, and you were assigned male at birth.
Yes.
People are saying this is a slur. It's a straight-up misgender.
Is it misgendering to go to a non-binary person who goes by they, them, and call them a male or a female? There's actually like some contention around that, as far as I understand. There is a general progressive trend that says that is misgendering and that is transphobic, unless there's like a particular medical context where it's relevant. If you're just speaking in everyday language, there's no reason to go up to a person and refer to their sex when you're using like a term to describe them to their face. But not everybody believes that.
No, it is not.
Okay.
How is trans woman misgendering then?
Well, trans woman? Well, hold on. We're talking about a non-binary they, them. Why would you call them a trans woman in that case? Maybe you misspoke.
How?
Hey everyone, just a brief correction. Zan didn't misspeak here, I just misheard him. He's drawing a parallel between Theyfab, which explicitly refers to an individual's assigned sex, and trans woman, which refers to one's gender and refers to sex by implication. It's still a bad comparison, but that's my bad for missing that.
It's neither a slur or misgendering, nor was it ever invented to be a slur.
We'll look at that in a
that
second.
Karl Marx guy who victim blamed me for my getting financially abused by my ex, that Keffals debated that started this whole Theyfab discourse.
I'm not going to comment on
the
that.
Second part of this whole drama. That person literally lied about the origin of the term. It does not come from 4chan.
Where does it come from? Are we going to get that?
I don't care if it's been used as an insult towards you.
I don't think he
Saying
says.
that its usage period is tantamount to a slur is downright deranged and terminally online. You do not get to decide that a new slur has been invented.
Who doesn't get to decide? Who decides?
And it is so impossible to prove even an origin rooted in it being used as a slur.
Impossible.
Not to mention, I'm going to be very honest here, there is nothing transphobic about non-discriminatory labels. And that is what Theyfab and Theymab are. There's nothing about they...
What do you mean that's what they are? Like textually? Like just the terms in a vacuum? Because that's not how we decide whether something is a slur or not. That's not how that works. I'll let him finish before I continue, but it's a weird thing to say.
Fab or Theymab that is harmful. The words themselves do not indicate any offensive term. They is a pronoun.
Okay, yeah, so he's just talking about, like, literally the etymology.
Based, it's literally there. Fab allows you to, like, clarify whether or not you present more femininely.
Yes, in context, but no, not in the literal text. It's female at birth. That's all. Like, textually, that's what it means. If you're adding the way that it's applied, then you have to actually look at the way that it's used, which we will do in a second.
Mab lets you, add whether or not you present more masculinely. I guarantee you this terminology will be reclaimed and used as an identity label.
People reclaim the F slur as an identity label. That doesn't mean that it isn't a slur in some context or that it wasn't a slur. Also, for something to be reclaimed, it has to be a slur. So he's kind of contradicting himself here. I guess that's a low blow. Maybe he's just misspeaking.
10 years. Clip it. Regardless.
Yes, clip it. Do it.
It is insane to me how much people are willing to jump down someone's throat over someone's usage of the word. And their defense of that is, why are you so desperate to defend your use of the word? Because if you want me to not say a word, there needs to be a damn good reason why I shouldn't say it. There are a whole lot of words I will never say because there's damn good reasons why I shouldn't say it. Theyfab and they...
Yeah, I don't really care if he wants to say it or not. Like, he can say whatever he wants. I'm not gonna go on the, oh, why are you using it bent. That's not what I'm here for. I'm just kind of interested in the facts right now. So he's saying that it's not an insult, it's not transphobic, it's not derogatory. Well, first of all you have to do is Google it. We just did this. It is derogatory. And he's saying that it's just referring to people's... It's just purely descriptive. It's just referring to their sex and their pronouns. The reason that argument doesn't hold up is because that's not how we decide what a slur is. The word she-male is just she, a pronoun, and male, your gender. It's like etymologically, it's the same as Theyfab. There's no like difference in the text there. the thing that makes it a slur is how it's used. That's what's important here, which he's kind of glossing over because it's not very convenient to his argument. So we can look at other ways that it's used. Theyfab, a term to mock AFAB non-binary people, simply a trender. A term that is mostly used by transmeds and true scums. Well, Keffals contested that during that debate. We saw that a couple streams ago. Which means a non-dysphoric woman LARPing as non-binary. The term is a combination of the pronoun they and the term AFAB, and is commonly used to make fun of and mock trans women who identify as NB without changing their female appearance, and call out anyone who doesn't use their pronouns. Non-dysphoric person LARPing as non-binary that's transphobic and semi-often even homophobic, that has inserted themselves into the LGBT community, which they neither appreciate nor understand, that is AFAB. Derogatory term for a woman who identifies as non-binary. Combination of the pronouns they, them, and the term AFAB assigned female at birth. A term that is used to mock girls who identify as non-binary without changing their gender presentation at all. They tend to be incredibly vocal about how they are LGBT and consider anyone who doesn't use they, them a transphobe. Sus entry here. Even if they are obviously a female. These are the types to say, I'm bisexuality, but I only date men. Okay, so this right here is like a submission by Transmed, or someone who is like extremely NB-phobic. Keffals was saying nobody uses the term this way, but here is a person using the term that way. Zan's also saying that the term is not problematic or transphobic. This is transphobic. I'm sorry. This is transphobic. Another thing that Keffals mentioned was that the term was around since like 2012 or 2011 or something. She said she's been using it since then, but we can do something. We can go back in time and we can actually look from the 90s all the way to December 2021, and look, there's nothing here. No one's using it on Reddit. And we can remove the Reddit here and just see like who's using it generally in that time period. That's almost nothing. Before 2001, this term did not exist online. Maybe it was just in Keffals' personal niche circles. Or maybe she's lying. So we can look after 2001. Hey everyone, I'm back with another editor's note. I say 2001 a bunch in this section when I meant to say 2021. I'm not sure how I messed that up when 2021 was right there on the screen. I'm just that kind of dumbass. That's a thing we can do. So it looks like there's a lot more stuff on Reddit after 2001. And we'll look through that in a second, but there's just another interesting thing here, and there's a link in the description for this, by the way. Keffals also mentioned that there was scholarly articles using the term Theyfab in order to defend it, saying, oh, this isn't transphobic, or this isn't an insult or a slur. It's not used by transmedicalists. It's even in academic articles. Well, guess what I did? I searched academic articles online, and I found one. It was used one time in the last infinite amount of time, at least for what's available online. This is from 2022. It's a doctoral thesis, Authentic Self-Incongruent Acoustics, a corpus-based psychophonetic analysis of non-binary speech. And if we search for the term Theyfab in here, we get something very interesting. Transmedicalist definitions tend to exclude some or all non-binary identities, and proponents of the transmedicalist definition often characterize non-binary identities as invalid, using insulting terms like Theyfab, a play on assigned female at birth, or transtrender. It's also a slur. So that's very interesting. It seems like all of the sources, everywhere we look, it's transphobic. And that's what matters, how it's used, how people are perceiving the term. Like that's how words work. It's not just the etymology. We're not Reddit conservatives here. Come on. Speaking of Reddit, we can take a look at a few of these as well, just to see how people are using it. And I'm not going to be discriminatory. We'll just look through the first page here. And we looked at this one last time I covered this, but I'll just quickly go over this one. I learned the term Theyfab and have been in mental turmoil since. Hail, I've been going through a bit of a crisis with this recently and don't really know how to parse these feelings, so I appreciate any advice you may have. So obviously I'm non-binary and I'm AFAB as well. I've always had a bit more masculine presence and I love that about myself. But the way I dress and express myself has always been more feminine, mainly because I detached gender from my dresses and skirts and thought of them as androgynous gowns. Think like a sheet ghost. But as I got older, I realized I loved appearing feminine in the way a man would appear feminine, if that makes sense. Girly in a masculine way, like the lead singer in a black metal band who paints his nails and has long hair. So I grew up my hair, wore my band's tees and skirts, because that's what made me feel best. That was until someone I followed made some jokes about Theyfabs. Non-binary people who, to outsiders, appear as cis women. The discussion was about how those guys have it easier because they don't look visibly trans. The OP was a trans woman, and I respect her perspective, and I find it important. But while I feel guilty about it, I won't lie. It hurt to realize that such a term existed. Not that I don't agree that I have such privilege, because I do. It's just that I suppose it made me realize that to others I just look like a girl, and it hurts me to be aware of that. Ever since then, I haven't been wearing dresses or anything. I shaved my head again a few weeks ago and look a lot more traditionally butch now, which I really like. I still get called ma'am and miss at work. I just wish I looked more masculine. So masculine I wouldn't get called ma'am in a dress. Have you ever had similar experiences before? How do you deal with these feelings? Okay, so we're going to look at a few more. And then we can check other sites besides Reddit too. It's Theyfab, Fembi is not NB enough. Self-hatred hours. It's me the reason people think NBs are just shiny versions of regular women. I'm AFAB, I like pink makeup, dresses, long hair, literally. Nothing about me is non-cis in any way. I don't even want to change my body, so it's not like I'm dysphoric. I even primarily like men, so I'm not fucking cishet, it makes me gag. Why am I even here? Why do I want to be queer so fucking bad when it's clearly not even a little bit? Or I'm clearly not even a little bit. It just looks like somebody who's... I'm not sure what this person is going through here. What is a Theyfab? I've been browsing 4chan for some time due to the toxic positivity on mainstream subs, so I can get a small taste of some toxic negativity. And I found a lot of posts that are mocking what they call Theyfabs. What does it mean? As I understand it, it's to signify the person is non-binary but AFAB, used in a pretty derogatory way to say, you're non-binary but everyone sees you as a woman. So yeah, like, everyone seems to, or a lot of people seem to use it that way. I'm sure there are contexts where it's fine, like self-referentially or something, but that doesn't seem to be the majority of cases, from what we can see here. Theyfab privilege. They're even more annoying than regular women. Yeah, this is literally a transmedicalist / like transphobe subreddit. Why do a lot of trans people get upset about Theyfabs? Isn't it transphobic to refer to an NB person by their assigned sex? It's gatekeeping and bullshit. Trans is short for transgender, not transition. People are their gender, period. It has nothing to do with whether they take any steps to physically transitioning. Transgender means one's gender does not match their physical sex. Yeah, I mean, it's just... the term itself is, like, leaning on bioessentialist, at least by implication. because it's taking somebody's sex and fetishizing it to the point where it needs to be mentioned as an identifier in everyday conversation. Like, it would be like introducing your black friend as your black friend every time you introduced them. Calling someone Theyfab, Theymab without their consent, especially in a derogatory way, and that is how Keffals was defending it, by the way. She was defending using it as an insult, is XR sexist. No ifs, ands, or buts. Just to admit you hate non-binary people and go. There is one more. When I was looking like in 2001 and back, we'll just Google it again. So let's look from 2000 to 2021. What is Theyfab supposed to mean? Sounds weird. It's a term meant to mock AFAB non-binary people. They like the pronouns and fab from AFAB. I haven't seen it used much, but it's way more common than on other sites like Twitter. What really pissed me off is it's usually other LGBT people using it and will defend the use of it. It was back in 2020. Okay, so it's been around for about 4 years at least. We can't find much of it before that. I know several non-binary or AFAB non-binary people who, as soon as they came out as non-binary, immediately began dressing in ridiculous hyperfemme outfits they never would have worn before. A lot of people see this and say shit like Theyfab, or that they're non-binary for attention. After all, look how femme they are. But to me, this just makes perfect sense. When you are forced into the category of woman, against your will, femininity is a chore. It's a job that you have. As soon as you say, no, I'm not a woman, suddenly femininity isn't your job anymore. It's not a requirement. It's just a fun little hobby you get into, or a little treat sometimes. And we can look at some of the comments. There are a lot of comments of people just saying, yes, that is exactly how I feel. It's a costume to a lot of us. That's how it felt wearing dresses for me, like I was in drag. You've articulated what I've been trying to say for years. Glad other people get it. Someone said it. It feels like a fun costume, not a responsibility. Okay, so like that's just their... That's like part of their style. It's part of their identity that they're building. It's not them being secretly a woman, obviously. And the assumption that it is a person pretending to be trans or pretending to be non-binary for attention is transphobic. And that is the implication according to every definition that we can find when people use the term. So, I love you, Zan, but you're just, you're wrong on this one. I'm sorry.